The sun hung low in the sky, casting a warm golden hue over the Thompson family's minivan as they cruised down a winding country road. Laughter filled the vehicle, a sweet melody of vacation excitement. "Are we there yet?" asked 8-year-old Lily, her voice a mix of impatience and glee. "Just a little longer, sweetheart," replied her father Mark, glancing at the GPS. The screen blinked with a stubborn, no signal. "Looks like we're off the grid. Perfect for an adventure." As they rounded a bend, the Thompsons stumbled upon a quaint village nestled between rolling hills. It was a picturesque scene straight out of a storybook, with cobblestone streets, vintage storefronts, and flower boxes bursting with color. The sign at the entrance read, "Eldridge Hollow," but it wasn't marked on any of their maps. "Let's check it out," suggested Sarah, Mark's wife, her eyes sparkling with curiosity. The family parked and stepped out, the scent of blooming flowers mingling with the crisp air. The villagers greeted them with wide smiles, their clothes reminiscent of another era, long dresses, waistcoats, and hats that seemed to belong to a time long past. At first, the Thompsons felt welcomed, even enchanted. They wandered through the streets, admiring the quaint shops selling handmade goods and local delicacies. But as they explored, an unsettling feeling crept in. The laughter of the villagers felt rehearsed, their eyes too bright, too eager. Mark tried to shake off the feeling. "It's just a small town, they're probably just friendly," he reassured himself. As the sun dipped below the horizon, casting long shadows, the Thompsons decided it was time to leave. They hopped back into the minivan, but as Mark turned the key in the ignition, a chill swept through the air. The engine sputtered but didn't start. "Come on, not now," he muttered, trying again. The van coughed but remained silent. "Maybe we should ask someone for help," Sarah suggested, glancing nervously at the village that now felt more like a trap. They stepped out again, the villagers still smiling, but now their eyes glinted with something darker. Mark approached a man in a bowler hat. "Excuse me, our van won't start. Can you help us?" The man's smile widened, revealing teeth that seemed too sharp. "Ah, you're not going anywhere, my friend. The roads, they lead back to us." "What do you mean?" Mark asked, a knot tightening in his stomach. "The roads are cursed," the man said, his voice low and conspiratorial. "Once you enter Eldridge Hollow, you're part of it forever." The Thompsons exchanged worried glances. "That's ridiculous," Sarah scoffed, but her voice trembled. "Try to leave, and you'll see," the man said, tipping his hat and walking away, his laughter echoing in the twilight. Panic set in as the family hurried back to the van. Mark tried the ignition again, but it was futile. "We need to find help," he said, urgency creeping into his voice. They decided to explore the village further, hoping to find someone who could assist them. As night fell, the village transformed. The charming storefronts seemed to loom, shadows stretching like fingers reaching out. The Thompsons heard whispers, soft and sinister, drifting through the alleys. "Did you hear that?" Lily asked, clutching her mother's hand. "Probably just the wind," Sarah replied, though her voice lacked conviction. They approached a tavern, its sign creaking in the breeze. Inside, the atmosphere was thick with tension. The villagers sat at tables, their eyes fixed on the Thompsons, smiles unwavering. Mark approached the bar, where a woman in a long, flowing dress polished glasses. "Excuse me, can you help us? Our van won't start." She looked up, her eyes cold and distant. "You're better off here, dear. The village needs you." "Needs us for what?" Mark demanded, frustration boiling over. The woman leaned closer, her voice a mere whisper. "To keep the curse alive." Before he could respond, the lights flickered, and the villagers began to chant in unison, their voices rising in a haunting melody. The Thompsons exchanged terrified glances as the room seemed to close in around them. "Run!" Mark shouted, grabbing Lily and Sarah. They bolted for the door, the chanting growing louder, echoing in their ears. Outside, the streets twisted and turned, leading them back to the center of the village no matter which way they ran. "Why can't we get out?" Sarah cried, panic rising in her chest. "Stay close," Mark shouted, his heart racing. They dashed down an alley, shadows darting at the corners of their vision. The villagers followed, their smiles now menacing, eyes glinting with a hunger that sent chills down their spines. They stumbled upon an old church, its doors ajar. "In here," Mark urged, pushing the family inside. The interior was dark, illuminated only by the flickering light of candles. Dust motes danced in the air, and the atmosphere felt heavy with secrets. "Look!" Lily pointed to a dusty altar at the front, where an ancient book lay open. Mark approached, flipping through the pages filled with strange symbols and incantations. "This is it," he said, realization dawning. "This book holds the key to breaking the curse." But as he read, the chanting outside grew louder, more frantic. The villagers were closing in. "We need to hurry," Sarah urged, glancing nervously at the door. Mark scanned the pages, searching for a way to break the curse. "It says here that we must confront the village's past, the reason it was cursed in the first place." "Who cursed it?" Lily asked, her voice trembling. "A witch," Mark read aloud. "She was wronged by the villagers and vowed to trap them in a never-ending cycle of despair. They must offer a sacrifice to appease her spirit." The door rattled as the villagers pounded against it, their chants growing louder. "We can't let them in," Sarah cried, her eyes wide with fear. "Wait," Mark said, a thought striking him. "What if we can offer something else? Something they want?" "What do you mean?" Sarah asked, confusion clouding her face. "Us. They want us to stay. If we can convince them we're not worth the sacrifice, maybe we can break the curse." "Are you crazy?" Sarah exclaimed. "They'll kill us. Or they'll let us go," Mark countered. "It's our only chance." As the door splintered, Mark shouted, "We're not here to be sacrificed. We're leaving." The chanting stopped abruptly, replaced by an eerie silence. The villagers paused, their expressions shifting from rage to confusion. "Leave?" one villager echoed, stepping forward. "You cannot leave. You belong to us now." "No," Mark shouted, stepping closer to the door. "We don't belong to anyone. We're not part of your curse." The villagers exchanged glances, uncertainty flickering in their eyes. "You think you can break the curse?" The man in the bowler hat sneered. "You're just as trapped as we are." "Not if we refuse to be," Mark yelled, his voice steady. "We're not afraid of you." The villagers hesitated, their resolve wavering. The atmosphere shifted, tension hanging thick in the air. "Leave us," Mark shouted again, his voice echoing through the church. "You can't keep us here." For a moment, the villagers seemed to falter, their smiles fading. Then, as if a spell had been broken, they stepped back. Uncertainty etched on their faces. "Leave," the woman at the bar whispered, her voice trembling. "You don't belong here." The Thompsons seized the moment, bolting for the door. They burst outside, the night air cool against their skin. The streets twisted and turned, but this time they ran with purpose, following the path that led them away from the village. As they sprinted, the whispers faded, the villagers' chants dissolving into the night. The road ahead stretched out, and with each step the oppressive weight of Eldridge Hollow lifted. Finally they reached the edge of the village, the cobblestones giving way to the familiar asphalt of the countryside road. The minivan sat waiting, the engine humming softly as if it had never faltered. "Get in," Mark shouted, ushering his family inside. They climbed in, hearts racing, and Mark turned the key. The engine roared to life, and they sped away, leaving the cursed village behind. As they drove, the sun began to rise, casting a warm glow over the landscape. The Thompsons exchanged relieved glances, laughter bubbling up as they realized they had escaped. But as they glanced back, the village was gone, as if it had never existed. Only the empty road remained, stretching endlessly into the horizon. "Did that really happen?" Sarah asked, her voice a mix of disbelief and relief. "Let's just forget it," Mark replied, gripping the wheel tightly. "We're free now." But deep down they all knew the truth. Eldridge Hollow was still out there, waiting for its next unsuspecting visitors. Its curse lingering in the shadows, whispering promises of charm and danger. And the Thompsons would never forget the village that time forgot.